We had a briefing from Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, along with the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Dan Raisin-Kane, this morning. And here was a bit of how that sounded SOT 13.
Thus far, Operation Epic Fury has delivered twice the air power of shock and awe of Iraq in 2003, minus Paul Bremer and the nation building. We are just getting started. We are accelerating, not decelerating. The Iranian Air Force is no more, built for 1996, destroyed in 2026. The Iranian Navy rests at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. Combat ineffective, decimated, destroyed. The combination of U.S. and Israeli intelligence and combat power will control Iran. We've taken control of Iran's airspace and waterways without boots on the ground. We control their fate.
Though the president says we are likely to be there for another 4 to 5 weeks. And this is what Bibi Netanyahu said on Hannity the other night, SOT 26.
I said it could be quick and decisive. It may take some time, but it's not going to take years. It's not an endless war. In fact, it's an effort right now to achieve the peace that we all yearn and pray for.
It may take some time, is as far as he went. The president saying 4 to 5 weeks. We really don't know. It's not going to be quick, and it doesn't seem like they're leaning toward taking the out that a lot of MAGA has been begging them to take, Glenn, which is just say it's a success right now. You took out the Ayatollah. You took out 39 or 40 other top members of the regime. You've put the Navy at the bottom of the ocean. You've gotten control of the airspace. You've done a lot of damage to their top missile sites and so on. Can we just declare it a win right now and leave and do the thing that should have been done in Iraq after the shock and awe? He made a reference to the shock and awe. Just do that. Just say it's a win right now and leave, but we're not prepared to do that. It's going to get worse, and we're still told that the full unleashing is yet to come. So your thoughts on where we are now on day 5? Yeah.
Okay. First of all, this is exactly what we heard, not just before the Iraq war, but into the Iraq war. It's only a matter of weeks, maybe a couple months at the most. This is not going to be a prolonged war. We have total dominance over the Iraqi military. They're dispersed. They're destroyed. Their military is destroyed. As you know, of course, President Bush George W. Bush made that notorious trip with the gigantic Mission Accomplished banner behind him, which, I mean, I understand from the military perspective, they did what they were at first told to do. But as we know, that accomplished nothing. We did end up being sucked in to Iraq. On top of that, even Tony Blair, one of the primary decision makers that led to the Iraq war, that advocated it, admits in retrospect that the power vacuum that we created is what gave rise to ISIS, that extremism and all kinds of terrorism can emerge when you take out a government and crush the civil society. So that's one thing. We've heard this whole thing before. Yes, they can just say, okay, we're done. But then the question is, what did that accomplish? Remember, the whole thing was justified at first on the grounds that the Iranian government is, slaughtering all of its citizens, killed however many protesters, the number constantly changes, but they killed a lot. And we were so concerned about that. We wanted to change the government, liberate the Iranian people. If we're going to do that, it's obviously going to take months and years of nation building, which is what Pete Hegseth is scorning. But if we don't do that, what have we achieved? We're going to smash this country, leave it in a kind of Syria or Libya-like state where we bombed all their police stations. There's no more police. There's going to be anarchy. There's going to be balkanization. There's going to be a power vacuum. Who knows who will fill it? For what? For how does that make the United States safer? It doesn't, just like the Iraq war didn't.
President Trump doesn't seem to have a clear plan in mind when it comes to the Ayatollah succession plan, like who's likely to be elevated. He said to the media the other day, we had a couple of people in mind, but now they're all dead. It looks like they may have elected Khomeini's son to be the next supreme leader. Not totally clear to me whether that's a done deal or whether it's just heading in that direction right now. But by some accounts, he's even more hardline than the old man was. And there's a question now about, are we already headed to a place where the new boss is worse than the old boss? And was this thought through?
First of all, this does seem very similar in a way, and I think a lot of people on MAGA are hoping it ends up similar to what happened in Venezuela. which is where we heard for weeks and months about Maduro and all the evils of the Maduro government. It was a communist regime that destroyed liberty and destroyed the country. And that was the original impetus for the war in a lot of people's minds. And then Trump goes in, takes out Maduro, doesn't do much else, blew up some boats, and left the entire rest of the government in place, which I'm glad about. I'm glad we didn't destroy the Venezuelan government and the nation built in Venezuela. But the question then is like, what did that achieve? We were able to run Venezuela, which we're basically doing. But so what is it in Iran? Are we going to just go in and say, okay, we killed the Ayatollah, we killed some senior leadership, and now the country, we're just going to leave it as is, govern the way it was before? He was asked specifically about the Shah of Iran, which is what all these Iranian exiles want, is the Shah of Iran's son to go be reinstalled. And when they asked Trump about it, he sounded exactly like when he sounded when they asked if Maria Machado was going to go and rule Venezuela. He was like, yeah, he's a nice guy, but I prefer somebody who's actually in the country, who's popular in the country. I don't think Trump wants a radical change in the governance. The problem, Megan, is that once you start a war like this, you can't control what the other side does. If they do things that require escalation, require retaliation, other countries get involved. That's a very volatile region. And that's what scares me the most. It's not that Trump wants endless war. He doesn't want to be there for years. But sometimes when you start a war like this, you have no choice. Bush didn't intend to be in Iraq for years either, or in Afghanistan for 20 years, and yet we were.
The reporting today is from Reuters that because there's a report that we're running low on our interceptors for these missiles at our outposts and domestically. We've given so many to Ukraine. We've already given a bunch to Israel in the wars that they've been involved in. And we've been using them in our combat with the Houthis. We use them when we bomb Nigeria over Christmas. So like there's a question about whether we have enough interceptors, which are very, very expensive. We're told reportedly 12 million. I've heard as low as 4 million, but I mean, the official said 12 million. And you can be using them to take out a $30,000 drone. So it's like, it's a very, the ratio is not great for us because they've got a lot of drones, the Iranians do, and they have missiles, and we need these interceptors for both. So now there's a report today from Reuters, per 5 people familiar with the plan, that the Trump administration plans to meet with executives from the biggest U.S. defense contractors at the White House on Friday to discuss accelerating weapons production as the Pentagon works to replenish supplies. Got Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, all the usual suspects to talk about things like Tomahawk missiles that Raytheon makes and a new agreement with the Pentagon. At the same time that Reuters again reports the White House meeting is coming as Deputy Defense Secretary Stephen Feinberg has been leading Pentagon work in recent days on a supplemental budget request of around $50 billion that could be released as soon as Friday. The new money would pay for replacing the weapons used in recent conflicts, including those in the Middle East. $50 billion is a huge, huge number, Glenn. It's especially huge in advance of midterms when people are having difficulty paying their rent and their mortgage. And their number one complaint, according to the polls, is the economy.
I mean, this is everything Trump ran on, not doing. I mean, that is the reality. You can say he changed his mind. You can say whatever. Conditions change. This is exactly what Trump told people he would not do, was pursue foreign wars that didn't have a direct threat to the United States and use our resources for Raytheon and Boeing and General Dynamics instead of renewing their communities with infrastructure and with healthcare and with the kinds of things that Americans should have just to live a decent middle-class life. It's a total violation of what he told Americans. I'm so glad you brought up, if I can just quickly, about this issue about depleting our stockpiles, especially our anti-missile defenses, which are crucial to how we've been defending Israel. Dan Caldwell is, I think, one of the smartest people on this question. I interviewed him a lot. I've talked to him a lot. He used to be a very high-ranking official he's fantastic in the Pentagon, got booted out in sort of a power play, but he knows as much about, if not more, about this than anything. And he talks about how during the 12-day war, the U.S. and Israel had to end that war because, as Trump said, Israel was getting pummeled hard by ballistic missiles and they were running out. What Iran has done in this instance is they're not just sending them to Israel, they're sending them to all of the Persian Gulf states on which the United States relies, Saudi Arabia, but especially the Emirates and Bahrain and Jordan. All these states are getting hit and they don't have very many anti-missile defenses at all. And this idea that we're going to just ramp up production, these are extremely complex systems. They track missiles. They take missiles out of the sky. There's no such thing as ramping up production in a way that's going to be ready in a few weeks or even a couple months. These are years-long processes to produce them. That's why we ran out last year. We were using them in Yemen. We gave them to Israel. We gave them to Ukraine. We used it to defend Israel. And we still don't have very many because of how long it takes and how intricate the process is to rebuild and replenish the stockpile.
Yeah.
That is a major, major issue.
Think about this. In 2006, $20,000 equaled roughly 33 ounces of gold at spot price. Okay, 20,000 bucks got you 33 ounces. At today's prices, those 33 ounces would be worth about $165,000. That would have been a very good investment. And that's why so many smart Americans do diversify a portion of their savings into precious metals. They're thinking about what's going to happen in the next 20 years. And it's also why you should consider buying gold from Birch Gold Group. For thousands of years, gold has been a store of wealth. And today, it is a crucial part of any balanced strategy. Even better, Birch Gold can help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered retirement account in gold. All you have to do is text MK to the number 989898, and that will give you a free info kit on gold. There's no obligation. It's just useful information from which you can make a decision. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, let Birch Gold help you diversify with gold. Now that's peace of mind. Again, text MK to 989898 today. And reportedly, it's one of the reasons why we waited to even launch this thing, because we were considering doing it a few weeks ago when all those protesters were on the streets of Iran, but we didn't because we realized we needed to reposition our military assets and we needed to shore up some of these interceptors for the expected missile attacks, both at the U.S. bases and with our friends. And now it sounds like we're spread thin, although the good news, if you're looking for good news here, appears to be that, at least for now, the number of missiles being launched out of Iran has gone down. Here's General Jack Keane on Fox News yesterday. Tuesday, SOT 31.
Where we are, it exceeds a lot of expectations here. Yesterday, after 2 days, we have reduced attacks by 50%. Today, after 3 days, we've reduced the attacks by 75%. Not only that, this is from ballistic missiles now. And not only that, but the Iranians had, through their own intelligence and communication with each other, and obviously we have a capability to understand what they're communicating, what orders they're putting out. Their own expectation was salvos, Martha, 25 to 50 salvos. And the reason for that is if you shoot all those missiles at the same time, you're going to overwhelm the Israeli defense systems and overwhelm the U.S. defense systems at our bases. Well, they haven't been able to do that.
So what do you make of it?
Well, I'm not privy to the intelligence I would need to be to say for certain if that's true or not. I would put the very strong note of caution that the government and the military in every war, not just our own, but every country's lie to the population, always tell them that we're winning, whether we are or not. This is a very common thing. But let's just assume that that's true, because there is this theory that they've been using their primitive missiles on purpose. They're primitive just to exhaust the anti-missile capabilities, and that their really hypersonic and more advanced ones are ones that they're going to use once those defenses are eroded. But let's assume they're running out of missiles. We're bombing their missile facilities. Making the whole point of what happened in the Iraq war between Ukraine the Ukraine war between Ukraine and Russia is that this has been a war that wasn't determined by these big, gigantic, technologically sophisticated missile systems, but by very cheap drones. That's what's doing all of the damage on the battlefield. And a lot of the supply that Russia has been using has been coming from Iran. That's the thing, is you don't need ballistic missiles to do huge damage. As you were just describing, you need like $20,000, $30,000 drones that you can shoot huge amounts of, even if you don't have a lot of ballistic missiles left, and do a ton of damage, especially if you're eroding the anti-missile capability, not just of the U.S. and Israel, but again, the Persian Gulf countries that are going to start demanding that the U.S. stop because their populations are being exposed to attack. And I think there's a lot of complications here that aren't being, it's day 5. The other thing I'll quickly add is, Pete Hegseth said, we totally dominate them. We have control of their air, their navy, the waters, the navy. We determine their fate. If we can totally dominate Iran in 5 days, after 5 days of war, how is it possible at the same time to say that this was some grave power that was threatening the United States when apparently, according to Pete Hegseth, it just all completely crumbled? They have like 30-year-old systems, he said. And it's hard to reconcile those claims with the claim that Iran is some sophisticated grave power that can do great damage to Americans at home.
Well, the president was out there yesterday trying to do some cleanup in aisle 7 after Marco Rubio appears to have told the truth to the Gang of Eight and then was kind of forced to say it to reporters because he'd already said it to the Gang of Eight, which is the reason why we launched this attack when we did. That's the most charitable interpretation, that the statement was just about timing. But Marco Rubio very clearly told reporters that we did it because we knew that there was going to be Israeli action and that there would be a retaliatory strike by Iran against us. And we preferred to hit them first. But that Bibi was in there saying, we're doing it, Israel, and that we made a calculation, we better join with them because we're going to take incoming from Iran in response to that. And we don't want to be hit after, like we don't want to be hit before we've hit. Here was that comment from Rubio on Monday, SOT 16.
It was abundantly clear that if Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond against the United States. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties. There absolutely was an imminent threat. And the imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us.
Okay, then there was a follow-up by a reporter on site saying, like, basically, wait, did you just say that we did this because of Israel? Watch this. SOT 17.
The U.S. was forced to strike because of an impending Israeli action?
No, two things I would say. Number one is, no matter what, ultimately this operation needed to happen. That's the question of why now. But this operation needed to happen because Iran in about a year or a year and a half would cross the line of immunity, meaning they would have so many short-range missiles, so many drones, that no one could do anything about it. Obviously, we were aware of Israeli intentions and understood what that would mean for us, and we had to be prepared to act as a result of it. But this had to happen no matter what.
Okay. So that's him saying, ultimately, at some point, we were going to have to hit them. But we had to do it now because of Israel, which is like sort of it's the same thing as what he said in the first soundbite, which is we had to do this because of Israel. And the reporter basically said, did you say we had to do it because of Israel? And he said, no, eventually it was going to have to happen, but we did it because of Israel. And then yesterday, Rubio went out and spoke to reporters and took umbrage at the fact that they were saying, hey, you said yesterday we had to do it now because of Israel. And he said, oh, no, I didn't. Go back and look. Well, we did. We went back. I looked at the entire transcript, and I love Rubio. I'd vote for him in a heartbeat for president. But he was not taken out of context. He did say that. He said it over and over and over. If you watch the whole presser, you read the whole transcript, he said it repeatedly, the thing about Israel. And you tell me what's really going on here, Glenn. Because for me, I got to be honest, I'm confused. Because the obvious response, if Israel was in there, Bibi saying, we're going to go now. The Ayatollah's having a meeting. We got to take them out. We're doing it with or without you. If we did not want that, would have been to say, no, we're the senior partner. Everybody knows that. Trump could have stopped Bibi if we were worried about retaliatory strikes or we're not ready yet. And we didn't do that. We clearly wanted to do that. So is this Israeli inspired? Is it for Israel or isn't it?
Well, one thing that I know for sure, and Netanyahu has said it many times in the past several weeks, is that this has been his number one wish for 40 years, is to lure the United States into a regime change war or a very serious war with Israel's main adversary in the Middle East, which is Iran. You can literally go back 40 years to Netanyahu advocating this, and now he says, this has long been my number one wish list. This has been the wish list of Israel loyalists and neocons in the United States. They planned to do it after Iraq, but got tied down in Iraq. You can go find 2004 articles where they're like, now we're on to Tehran. But the problem that Rubio has, and by the way, other people said exactly what Rubio said, including Tom Cotton and others, because if you think about it,
and Speaker Johnson
and Mike Johnson, exactly. So the problem is,
and members of the Gang of Eight have come out and said that's what they were told, but when they got briefed over the weekend as well. I mean, in every comment, they said we had to because Israel was going to do this, and we had no choice but to go along.
Exactly. And the reason for it is because the reason why, Marco Rubio is a very competent speaker, very quick on his feet. But the reason it was so difficult is because you have to say that this was a preventative war. Otherwise, the war has no basis. Like, why did you just go and attack Iran if they weren't going to attack us? So they have to say, oh, no, they were going to attack us and we wanted to attack first. Nobody believes that Iran was just going to, out of the blue, attack the United States and provoke a war that they obviously have been working very hard to prevent. Nobody was going to believe that. So then the question is, why would they attack us? And the only cogent, sensible answer that Marco Rubio could have given was, oh, they were going to attack us because Israel was going to attack them, meaning we were forced into this war by what Israel was going to do. Go look at how Donald Trump talks to Europe and the leverage he knows he has by virtue of the fact that we spend so much on their defense and he's constantly badgering them and telling them what they can and can't do. Israel is 1,000 times more dependent on the United States, on our finances. We finance that country. We arm them. We go to war for them. We diplomatically protect them. Trump could have, in theory, just told Netanyahu, we're not ready for a war with Iran. We don't want a war with Iran. So no, you cannot attack them because that will put our troops in harm's way, which is exactly what happened. 6 of them died in the first 24 hours. So the question is, why didn't Trump do that? And there's a lot of theories about it, but clearly he is somebody who is beholden to Netanyahu and Miriam Adelson and this whole crew that has become dominant.
Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.